Sandy Friedman here, licensed professional clinical counselor, clinically certified domestic violence counselor, clinically certified trauma professional level 2, and the creator of SNAP, Survivors of Narcissistic and Abusive Personalities. We're here to talk about season 2 of Succession and Siobhan Roy, and I'm here again with my brother. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, I'm Andrew. I'm her brother.
And we are going to start on a mega yacht today with Tom and Shiv.
That's right. When we last left Siobhan, she had just been married. And what is the thing that you want to do after you get married? You want to get away from it all. And her and Tom are on a honeymoon, but they don't avoid work, do they?
No, they sure don't. In fact, there's a lot going on while they're on their honeymoon. They've barely been on their honeymoon, and it has to do with Kendall and what happened at the end of season 1. And then we also have things brewing with the cruise line crimes. And so they're really kind of stuck on their devices and trying to find service and wondering, hey, should we go back?
On our last episode, we talked about Kendall being pulled out too early from his rehab, and this has a very similar flavor to it. It's kind of the same thing exactly, only this time it's Shiv and Tom. Now, they're both pulling out of their honeymoon, and they both kind of want to because they're in competition with each other in this show, which is a fascinating dynamic. When Shiv is brought back into the fold by Logan, she has been rebelling.
She went to go work for the enemy. She went to go work for Gil. She's been sort of cast out as a black sheep for a while. But now they might have some use for her. Logan is essentially reeling her back in.
Now that Tom and Shiv have left their honeymoon, Logan wants to have a meeting with Shiv.
In this meeting, Logan is going to start with his current round of future faking with Shiv. He wants her to be the CEO. But the reasons why he's saying that she's going to be the CEO is because they need a woman as the face of the company to solve some problems that are PR problems that are happening right now. But it also folds into something that Logan's trying to accomplish, which he's trying to acquire Pierce. Like you mentioned, Andrew, in our last episode of season 1, that Pierce is sort of the white whale for Logan Roy. He's wanted this for a long time. If he winds up landing the white whale, it would be the equivalent of, say, CNN and Fox News combining together under one ownership. And that's what he's trying to achieve, basically, is to own all the media.
Logan has a meeting with his daughter wherein he offers her the Succession role.
And he's saying, this is it. It's real. It's happening. And she kind of doesn't believe it, but he says, no, this is it. And she's so excited. But he also tells her now, we got to keep it on the down low. We can't go walking around. It's going to upset people. So let's just keep it. It's just you and I, just a need to know at this stage of the game. But you are the one for sure. He also says that she is going to need a 3-year training period. And that starts to rub her the wrong way. And that she needs to shadow some people because she has no experience. And he's acting like that this is normal. Like, well, yeah, you're going to need to train. And that is true that she would need to train. But he also knows that 3 years is not an acceptable period of time for her. So he's setting her up to vocalize her displeasure so that he can start already chipping away at the supposed decision he's made. He's going to say to her, okay, great, you're the CEO. Now there's going to be a 3-year training period, and then you're going to have to do this, and this. And then when she starts going, wait, what? I got to do, huh? And then he can go, oh, well, I guess you don't want it then. I guess you're not willing to put in the work then. And this is a tactic that manipulative people use. It's basically setting her up for failure. He's sabotaging her from the beginning by leading with something that he knows that she's probably not willing to do. And then that makes it her fault when it doesn't work out.
At the beginning of the episode, we talked about how Shiv was rebelling against Logan. As he is wont to do, he is pulling her back in. But what's he going to do as soon as she's within reach?
He's going to punish her. Like we've talked about in previous episodes, that's the pattern, is you discard and cast out, and then you reel the person back in, and then there's a punishment. It's a whole system and way of manipulating and controlling people, especially people like your children. It works. It's effective. We can see it playing out in the lives of these kids here. Now, I think it's interesting that when her dad really starts being more cold, so like he reels her in, you're it, you're the one, then just right from that moment, things start to deteriorate. And the way that he's able to make it seem like that deterioration is her own fault. When he finds out that she has left Gil, that she no longer is employed by Gil, her value plummets to Logan. Because remember, that was part of what he was using her for, is a pawn to be passed around between him and his archenemy. And that's just a toy that they're playing with between the two of them. Well, now that he knows Gil isn't playing with a toy anymore, he's not as interested in Shiv in that arena as he was just a few minutes ago. When he casts her out, there is something that he is going to go do with Tom and everyone else that Shiv doesn't get to go. And Shiv says to Tom, you need to talk to my dad and tell him that this is all not a good idea, that the acquiring of Pierce is a bad idea. We're overextending ourselves. You've got to get his ear. He listens to you. And Tom says, I don't think I want to do that. He doesn't want to. And here's what she says to him. And I believe this really puts together how Tom might really feel in this relationship. Oh, hello. Is this the replicant department? My meat puppet has stopped working. So when she tells him to do something and he says no, she makes fun of him like, dude, you're my toy to play with here, and you should do what I say. And then she's like, just kidding. She's always insulting him.
It's not only to abuse Shiv that Logan wants to pull her back in like a yo-yo. It's also because he has use of her. And the first thing that we could talk about here is the Pierce acquisition, which we've already mentioned. We know that Pierce is a more progressive company. In fact, Nan Pierce straight up says, we don't want Tom running a company that, we're selling to. We'd much rather that be Shiv, because she's a woman and because her politics align with them a little more. But Shiv kind of screws this up, right?
She is so anxious and nervous and excited and feeling awkward that she says a few things that fall flat and that seem to embarrass Logan. So he kind of starts to get even more cold towards her as that meeting progresses. And at one point she even says in front of everyone, come on, Dad, just tell them that it's going to be me anyway. They're saying they want that. It's going to be me. Why don't you just tell them? You can let the cat out of the bag at this point. And Logan does not like that. That does not go well for her. So she's basically, the more nervous and anxious she's getting, the more awkward she's acting. And again, Logan loves to make it seem like it's her own fault. He could react to her behaviors differently, just like he does with, say, Kendall by putting a diaper on him. He's fine. Everything's fine. He could be doing the same to her. He could be, ah, ha, ha, isn't she funny? But instead he looks at her like, you're a disappointment. And that way she can just know that the reason it didn't work out is because of her. Not because he had no intention of ever giving it to her, but because she screwed it up somehow.
This scene at the dinner table, too, where she spills the beans about the succession, this is a conversation that Logan has had with all three children already on the show. So they all think, oh, well, I'm going to be the one. Even Connor thinks that. All right. And he's never even been thought of in that instance by anyone but himself. But even he thinks that. So when she says, just let him know, Dad, it's me, the looks on the faces of the brothers is some tremendous acting, because we see a range of emotions going through their, through their bodies as they recognize this information. But the thing they never see is it's happening to all three of them. What they see is she's trying to take what's mine, and I find that interesting, is that everybody on this show is in competition with each other. And Logan is one of the characters that kind of floats above all that.
He's the one that creates the competition between the siblings. He's the one that pits them against each other. He's the one that talks out both sides of his mouth and then likes to watch them squirm and try to figure everything out. And that's when Rhea steps in. So Rhea is getting a little bit closer to Logan, and she sees the pickle that he's in. She sees how that he's gotten Shiv all revved up, that she's going to be the CEO, and that now he has to somehow answer to that. And he's trying his best to make it seem like, look, she's screwing up, it's her fault, and this and that. But he hasn't quite managed to shut her up entirely.
Well, Rhea enters the picture at this point, and she is a little naive. And I think that, Shiv is a little naive in her interactions with Rhea. But Rhea acts as Logan's flying monkey to kind of smooth things over for Shiv. She's doing this favor for Logan, but she also offers to do a favor for Shiv too.
Exactly. She agrees to talk to Pierce and see if there's a possible position for her. And don't forget that Shiv just got finished working for another rival of Logan. So it's very attractive to her to go work for another rival. She just left Gil. Sure, I'll work for Pierce. And it seems like that's what Rhea is doing, is that she's smoothing it over, like what you said, but that's not what she's doing. She's sabotaging Shiv. She's putting Shiv in a position so that it creates more evidence for Logan to be able to stand back and go, you're a traitor. You went to the enemy camp. And so you can't be the CEO if you're willing to stab me in the back like that. But she was completely set up by Rhea. Now she realizes that she has been set up, that Rhea was not trying to help her. And I think we learn a little bit more about Rhea in terms of how she navigates these rich people. She's an executive. She's swimming with the sharks. She knows how they work. But as we learn later, she really is naive, and she hasn't quite gotten to know this family that intimately yet.
Yeah, and maybe I was being naive about Rhea being naive about Shiv, but it turns out that Rhea is naive about Logan. And we know that because she says something along the lines of, oh, your father, he's such a kind man. He's so kind to me. And Shiv gives her this look like, okay, lady.
After Rhea sort of lulls Shiv into feeling comfortable with the conversation, making it seem like she's a woman on the side of a woman, and going to try to help her out, seeing that it wasn't fair the way that her father treated her. It does bring out of Shiv this sort of honest statement. She says, I feel like a flame-roasted, wood-fired dipshit. Yeah, I did the thing that I said I was never going to do. I managed to get myself in the situation where what my dad thinks is my entire fucking universe.
This statement is fascinating because the end of last season, we see Kendall running around telling everybody, I did it because my dad told me to. And here is Shiv in the same exact position. So another parallel that I think is absolutely fantastic. We saw Rhea and Shiv have this conversation where they are, Rhea's like, oh, I'm going to help you, but really I'm doing this, but really, all this stuff's going on. And Shiv has a very similar meeting with the witness to the cruise line scandal. Tell me all about this, where she's future faking this lady and does like a full-on Logan Roy tour, kind of representing all of our themes in one conversation. It's wild.
She starts off by appearing to be very transparent and talking negatively about her father. She says, a couple months ago, he screwed me over. He made me an offer that wasn't real, and he's a serial liar. And I'm going to be very frank with you. My card's on the table. I don't trust him. And that's the way she's starting off. So she's basically trying to align with this woman as another woman, the same way that Rhea was trying to align with Shiv, and say that, look, I get it. These guys are scumbags, and they did it, and it was wrong. And I am behind you, and you should speak your truth. But then she goes on to describe what this person's life is going to be like, and the kinds of things that they will have to face as the result of coming forward. And then it starts to kind of sound like a threat. So she's reeling the person in by making it seem like, I get you, and I'm here with you. But also, we're monsters, and we might eat you. So, good on you for being so brave and putting yourself out there and risking all those things by, because we are pretty dangerous. It's true.
even characters like this witness are on the yo-yo just like Shiv is. And in this scene, like I said, like you just described, we have Shiv using the same tactics that Logan uses on her with this lady. These children all interact this way with people that they're trying to get something from. It's we see it in all of them. Some of them are more deft at it than others. For example, an interesting thing is sometimes when we talk about Kendall, he says the dumbest shit ever. He stutters. He doesn't know how to say anything. But then you get him in front of Congress, and all of a sudden he's some genius, right? Shiv doesn't know what to say to her husband, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. She doesn't know what to say to her dad. But you get her, trying to manipulate a witness. All of a sudden, she's a superstar. It's wild, man. It's like when someone has military training, it kicks in at a certain point, right? And they're not thinking about it anymore if there's danger afoot. And that's the kind of thing that's happening with the children.
Andrew, that is such a great comparison that you just made. You're absolutely right that there's training here. These kids have been trained like dogs to respond in certain ways, to manipulate and to gaslight and to control the narrative and all the lying and the shifting and the shaping. That's what they've been taught to do. That's what they're really good at. They're good at the abuse. They're good at the toxic stuff. They're good at that. But what they're not good at is relationships, vulnerability, truth, honesty, feelings, emotions. Those things they cannot do, but put them in front of a situation where they need to work it and manipulate and step on someone to get where they want to go. They come to life and they perform quite well. And that just shows you the upbringing they've had. They were never taught how to be kind. They were never taught to have empathy. They were never taught to put themselves in other people's shoes or to be helpful. In fact, people that do that are weaklings and they're stupid, people that think they can save the world and shit like that. They really don't care about other people and they only care about themselves. That's the way they've been raised. That's the way they've been trained. And that's the genetics that they have. They're screwed. They've got the three-legged stool. They've got the environment, they've got the modeling, and they've got the genetics to be abusive people in their relationships. And they walk through life, parasites, hurting people, taking, controlling. And it's just me, mine, more, now. That's the training they've received. So you're absolutely right. It's like the training kicks in.
Last season's episode about Shiv, we talked about her wedding and the kind of crazy thing that she sprung on her husband, Tom, on their wedding night. At this point in season 2, Tom's ready to talk about that. And he confronts Shiv about the whole open relationship thing.
So Tom and Shiv have this conversation where he finally shares his true feelings about the whole open relationship thing. He says, on our wedding night, bang, I'm shanghaied into an open borders free fuck trade deal. He's basically saying he's unhappy and he isn't sure if he wants to stay in the marriage. And this really does upset Shiv. You can see that her emotions are sort of coming up, but as usual, she stifles them. And any tenderness or vulnerability goes away and she gets this like stiff upper lip. She toughens up. Instead of softening, she hardens. And this is avoidant attachment. There are people that are nervously attached. Basically, the 3 younger kids, you can see how they're nervously attached to their father. And she is also nervously attached to her father. But when it comes to her intimate partners, she's avoidantly attached. You can see how she treats her boyfriends. You can see how she treats Tom, that she was actually really upset and hurt because she does care about him, I think. I don't know about her capacity for love, but whatever capacity she has, I think she does love him to some extent. And she was really hurt to hear that he was thinking about that maybe we shouldn't be together, but she couldn't say, no, I love you. I don't want that. I want to stay together. Instead, she had to get tough. And that's the way she handles those intimate moments, not just with Tom, but with her siblings as well. Anytime things get intimate, we have to sort of shake out of that really quickly.
This kind of feathers into what we were talking about earlier too, where, whenever Shiv or the kids are trying to rip somebody off or screw somebody over, they're pros at it. But the second that actual emotions kind of seep into that a little bit, we can see them hesitate. We can see, that all of a sudden their control dramas and attachment styles are going to be showing up. And that's an important part of what we're talking about here, is that the trauma that they have gone through their whole life shows up in the relationships. And that's kind of a big key to just mental health in general, is understanding that about yourself and seeing how those things show up in everyday life. That's why we're talking about this show, is because it's such great examples of things like that. Logan and Shiv have kind of a final conversation here in this season where Logan asks her honest opinion about how she would handle the cruise ship Fall Guy situation and who she would choose. And this is a fascinating conversation.
It is, because yet again, he's setting her up for failure. He is saying, would you make Tom the Fall Guy? And would you be okay with that? What would you do? And it's putting her in an impossible situation. She doesn't really want to say, yeah, make it Tom. Although in the group setting, she'll say, make it Tom, but privately, she doesn't want it to be Tom. And when she realizes that she's not going to be CEO, after basically Logan is like, see, you couldn't handle that decision. If you want to be CEO, these are the kinds of decisions that you're going to have to make. And if you can't make it, then you can't hang with us. And that's really where it ends there, is that she couldn't really answer the question with that stiff upper lip that she needed to call upon. And instead she softened and said, I don't think I can make that decision about her own husband. And I think that's quite reasonable. But what she does after that is she kind of drops the tough act. She no longer is in a state of petulance. And instead she is now looking to her father like a little girl. And she's saying, please don't make Tom the Fall Guy. And please do that just for me. I'm your daughter. You love me. And would you please just do me that favor, not Tom? Well, that's really nice of her. But also Tom's kind of mad at her right now. So while that's sweet, the very next thing that happens is she walks over to Tom and whispers in his ear. And we can assume that she's reporting back that, hey, I pled your case, honey, and I tried my best. Maybe she's trying to win brownie points with Tom in that moment. Or maybe she was just actually in a moment of little girl vulnerability and regressing to that age of needing your dad to see your pain and see what you need and have your back for once.
He never gave it to him, though. And they're still looking for it. All three of the children, all four of the children, they're still trying to find that. And it's awesome to see the characters regress. It happens to all of them. It happens to Connor as well. In fact, you might say Connor is 100% regressed all the time. You know what I mean? But all these characters, it's so fascinating. And I think Siobhan is one of the most fascinating characters on the show.
Our next episode, we are going to discuss Roman Roy. When you're talking about regression, oh my gosh, he's one of the first ones that come to mind. And we really learn a lot more about him in this season. We thought we knew how screwed up he was, but we were wrong. We now know a lot more about how screwed up Roman Roy is. And as we get to know all of the kids throughout the entire series, we will learn more and more about the damage that has been done and how it affects them in their present day lives.
Well, Roman is my favorite character, so I can't wait to talk about him again on the next episode.
Thank you for watching or listening. Bye-bye.